The morning sun had just begun to rise over the small village of Ancutano, casting a soft golden light across the narrow dirt roads. The air carried the mixed scent of roasted maize, ripe mangoes, and red dust kicked up by early traders pushing their carts to the market. Among them walked Amara, her old woven basket balanced carefully on her head, filled with the few vegetables she could afford to sell that day: tomatoes, peppers, and a handful of okra. Her bare feet pressed softly against the earth, leaving faint footprints in the morning dew. To anyone watching, she looked like an ordinary woman, young, quiet, hard-working. But inside, Amara carried a weight heavier than her basket. Her mother lay ill at home, her cough growing worse each night. The little medicine she could buy never lasted long enough, and the doctor's visits had stopped when Amara could no longer pay. Her younger sister, Lady, had been sent home from school 2 weeks ago because of unpaid fees. And last night, the landlord had come again, knocking angrily on their wooden door, warning that he would throw them out if she didn't pay the rent soon. Amara's lips pressed into a tight line as she thought about it all. But she kept walking, whispering softly under her breath, "God, please, just help me today. Let me sell everything." The market was already alive when she arrived, a storm of colors, noise, and movement. Women shouted prices, children chased chickens, and the air hummed with energy. The cries of sellers rose and fell like music, blending with the clinking of coins and the laughter of buyers. Amara set her basket down under her usual wooden stall, arranging the vegetables neatly. Her hands moved automatically, quick and practiced, though her mind was far away. Still, she greeted everyone with a smile. The old fruit seller beside her, the young butcher's wife, even the beggar who sat by the well. They all knew Amara, the girl with kind eyes, who would rather go hungry than cheat a customer. By midday, the sun was high and merciless, beating down on the tin roofs of the stalls. Sweat glistened on Amara's forehead as she counted her few coins. She hadn't sold much, just enough to buy food for the night and a few tablets for her mother's cough. She sighed deeply and looked across the market, watching others with baskets full of goods and cheerful faces. Her friend Ngozi, who sold fruits 2 stalls away, waved at her and called out, "Amara, don't worry. Tomorrow will be better." Amara smiled weakly. "I hope so," she replied, though she didn't believe it. The afternoon dragged on, slow and hot. The laughter faded, replaced by the distant hum of flies and tired voices. By the time the sky began to fade into a dull orange, most traders were packing up, heading home before nightfall. Amara sat quietly for a while, staring at the coins in her palm. They looked too few, too small, a cruel joke played by life. Her heart ached with frustration. She thought of her mother coughing through the night, of Lady's sad eyes when she asked if she could go back to school, and of the landlord's harsh voice at the door. Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. She had no time to cry. She stood, gathered the few unsold vegetables, and placed them back into her basket. The market around her was growing silent now. The sellers gone, the stalls empty, the shadows stretching longer across the dusty ground. She looked up at the darkening sky, a soft breeze brushing her face. Somewhere, a bird cried as it flew toward the horizon. Amara pressed her hands together and closed her eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lord, please, just one sign, one miracle, something to show me. You still see me." The wind blew gently through the market, stirring the leaves and carrying away the faint echo of her prayer. She opened her eyes slowly, unaware that her plea had already been heard, and that before the sun rose again, her life would never be the same. The sun was sinking low when the market finally began to empty. The once bustling stalls now stood quiet, their bright umbrellas folded down, their sellers heading home with tired smiles and half-empty baskets. Amara sat on a wooden stool, her body aching from the long day. Her basket was nearly empty, but her heart felt heavier than ever. She had earned barely enough to buy supper, and the thought of her mother's weak cough waiting at home made her chest tighten. The evening wind moved softly through the market, lifting dust and stray pieces of paper. The air smelled of roasted ground nuts and the faint smoke from distant cooking fires. Amara sighed, brushing her palms on her skirt, ready to pack up. That was when her eyes caught something, a dark shape half hidden under her stall. At first, she thought it was just a piece of cloth someone had dropped, but when she bent down and reached for it, her fingers touched smooth leather. It was a purse, black, worn but clean, with a small golden clasp. Amara froze for a moment, glancing around. The market was almost empty now. Only the echo of distant voices drifted through the air. Two women were closing their stalls across the street, and a stray goat wandered by, its hooves tapping softly on the ground. She turned the purse over in her hands, her heart thudding softly in her chest. It felt heavy. For a long moment, she just stared at it. Then curiosity. And something else, something she didn't want to name, pushed her to open it. Inside was a bundle of cash, thick and neatly tied with a red string. There was also a small folded note, tucked neatly beside it. Amara gasped. Her hands trembled. She had never held so much money in her life. Not even close. Her mind raced. Who could have dropped this? Maybe one of the rich traders? Maybe someone will come back for it? She looked around again, but the market was nearly deserted. The only sounds now were the rustling of leaves and the distant bleating of goats. Her breath quickened. Her heart felt as if it was caught in a tug-of-war between right and wrong. She thought of her mother, lying weakly on the thin mat at home, whispering through her pain, "Don't worry, Amara. God will provide." She thought of Lottie, her little sister, staring at her school books that morning, saying softly, "I'll go back to school next term, right?" And the landlord's voice, sharp and cold, "I'll throw you people out if you don't pay me this week." Tears gathered in Amara's eyes. She whispered to herself, Maybe this is the miracle I prayed for." But another voice inside her, quieter, heavier, said, "No, it's not yours." Amara's fingers gripped the purse tightly. She stared at the note inside but didn't open it. Her lips trembled. "I'll ask tomorrow," she said aloud, as if trying to convince herself. "I'll ask if someone lost a purse. But tonight, I'll just keep it safe." She slipped the purse into her basket and wrapped a piece of cloth over it. But as soon as she did, a strange chill ran through her body. The wind that had been gentle moments ago suddenly turned cold and sharp, sweeping through the empty market and lifting the edge of her wrapper. The hairs on her arms stood on end. Amara looked up quickly. The stalls around her creaked softly, their shadows long and stretched. A piece of paper blew past her feet and disappeared into the dark. For a moment, it felt like the whole market was holding its breath. She swallowed hard, whispering a shaky laugh. "You're just tired, Amara, that's all." But when she bent to lift her basket, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Not from the road, not from the shadows, but from the air itself. She straightened up quickly, glanced once more around the empty stalls, and began walking home faster than usual. Behind her, the market lay still, quiet, cold, and heavy with something unseen. The sun dipped completely behind the hills, and the first hints of darkness crept in. Amara's footsteps echoed softly against the dirt road. Her basket balanced tightly against her hip. Inside it, the black purse rested silently, the folded note still unread, and as she disappeared into the distance, a whisper of wind passed through the empty stalls again. Soft, but this time with a strange low hum, almost like a sigh. By the time Amara reached home, the sky had turned dark. Her small mud house stood at the edge of the village, surrounded by tall grass and the faint sounds of crickets. A weak oil lamp flickered by the doorway, casting long, trembling shadows on the walls. Inside, the air was thick and still. Her mother lay on a mat near the corner, breathing shallowly, a thin blanket pulled to her chest. Her little sister, Lady, sat beside her, fanning away mosquitoes with a piece of cardboard. Amara forced a smile as she entered. "I'm home," she said softly. Lady looked up, her eyes tired. "Did you sell everything?" "Almost," Amara answered, setting down her basket. "Enough for food and your mother's medicine." She didn't mention the purse. Not yet. It sat hidden beneath her vegetables, wrapped tightly in a piece of cloth, like a secret she wasn't ready to face. Amara cooked a simple meal, boiled yam and palm oil, while her mind wandered. Every time she turned, her eyes drifted toward the basket. She could almost feel the purse calling out to her from under the cloth, reminding her of what it carried. After they ate, Amara gave her mother the medicine and helped her lie back down. Her mother's voice was faint, trembling. "God will bless you, my child. You always find a way." Amara smiled weakly, her heart twisting. If only her mother knew the truth. When the house grew quiet, she took the purse from the basket and slipped it under her mattress. Her hands shook as she did it. "Just for tonight," she whispered. "Tomorrow, I'll ask if anyone lost it." But even as she said the words, she wasn't sure she believed them. Outside, the night deepened. The crickets sang louder. The wind pressed against the old wooden windows, making them rattle softly. Amara tried to rest beside her sister, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept replaying the moment she had found the purse, the chill that swept the market, the way the shadows had seemed to move. She turned over, restless. Then her mother stirred in her sleep. Her voice came out soft and cracked, like a whisper carried from another world. "Return what is not yours." Amara froze. Her heart stopped for a moment. "Ma?" she whispered, sitting up. But her mother's eyes were closed, her breathing slow. She was still asleep. Amara swallowed hard, rubbing her arms. The air felt colder now, though she hadn't opened a window. The small oil lamp flickered, its flame twisting as if someone had just walked past. Then the light went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Amara's breath quickened. She could hear Lady's soft breathing beside her and her mother's faint cough. But underneath those sounds was something else. A soft creak, like a footstep just outside the door. She sat perfectly still. Another step, then silence. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Slowly, she reached for the matches and relit the lamp. The weak light returned, trembling against the cracked wall. "Who's there?" she whispered toward the door. No answer. She rose quietly and walked over, her bare feet pressing against the cold floor. She pushed the curtain aside and peered out. The night outside was empty, the road dark, the trees swaying gently in the wind. The only sound was the slow rustle of dry leaves. She let out a shaky breath and turned back. But as she looked toward her bed, she thought, just for a second, that she saw a shadow move across the wall, near the spot where she had hidden the purse. Her heart jumped. She blinked, staring hard. Nothing. She rubbed her eyes and forced a nervous laugh. "You're just tired, Amara," she muttered. "Just tired and thinking too much." She sat on the bed and pulled the thin blanket over her shoulders. But even then, she couldn't stop glancing at the mattress. She could feel it there. Not just the purse, but something heavier, as if the money carried a secret weight. The air seemed to thicken. The silence grew louder, pressing into her ears. Finally, she lay down and pulled her little sister close. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but sleep still wouldn't come. She whispered one last time, almost pleading, "Tomorrow. I'll return it tomorrow." The words floated in the air like a promise. Weak, uncertain, trembling. Minutes later, her eyes finally closed. her fingers unconsciously clutching the edge of the mattress, right above where the black leather purse lay hidden. Outside, the wind shifted, soft and cold, carrying with it the faint sound of a woman's voice, low, distant, and mournful, whispering something Amara would only remember in dreams. The night had grown thick and heavy, the kind of darkness that pressed against the walls and swallowed every sound. Amara slept uneasily, her dreams tangled with whispers she couldn't understand. Her mother's breathing was slow but steady beside her. Lady shifted in her sleep, mumbling softly. Then, bang, bang, bang. A loud, firm knock echoed through the small house. Amara's eyes flew open. Her heart leapt into her throat. For a moment, she thought she had dreamed it. But then it came again. 3 slow, heavy knocks that shook the wooden door. Her mother stirred and whispered weakly, "Who is it?" At this hour, Amara didn't answer. She sat still, listening. The wind outside had stopped. Even the crickets had gone silent. Another knock, slower this time. Bang! 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 Her breath came in short gasps. Who's there?" she called, her voice trembling. At first, there was no response. Then a voice answered, calm, low, and strangely cold. "My child, you picked something that belongs to me." Amara froze. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Outside the door, inside the walls, even behind her. Lady sat up, frightened, clutching the blanket. "Amara?" Her mother's voice quivered. "Don't open the door." But something stronger than fear pulled Amara to her feet. She moved toward the door slowly, each step echoing in the silent house. Her hand trembled as she reached for the curtain. The old door creaked open. Standing just beyond the threshold was a woman. She wore a long white wrapper that glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if the fabric itself carried its own light. Her feet were bare. Her face was partly hidden beneath a scarf, but Amara could see her eyes, dark, calm, and ancient. The air around her felt cold, heavy, and strangely still. Amara's voice shook. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head slightly. Her tone was gentle, almost motherly. "You picked up my purse, child." "I came for it." Amara's lips parted. Her chest tightened. Your purse?" The woman nodded. "Black leather. Gold clasp. You found it near your stall." Every detail was exact. Amara felt the blood drain from her face. She glanced back toward the bed, where the purse was hidden under her mattress. How do you know?" she whispered. The woman stepped closer but did not cross the threshold. The cold air followed her. "Because I never left it behind willingly." Amara's hands began to tremble. The house seemed smaller now, the air pressing down. Lady whimpered softly behind her, clutching their mother's arm. The woman's voice softened. "Please, my child, return what is mine." Amara turned slowly toward her bed. Her feet felt like they were moving through water. She knelt, lifted the mattress, and pulled out the black purse. The moment she touched it, the air grew colder. The flame of the oil lamp flickered wildly. She clutched the purse to her chest and turned back toward the doorway. The woman was still there, waiting. Amara hesitated. I didn't mean to keep it," she stammered. "I was going to ask around tomorrow." The woman's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "I know. That's why I came myself. No one else could." Her words sent a shiver down Amara's spine. She stepped forward and stretched out her trembling hands. The woman reached for the purse, but before their fingers touched, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room, snuffing out the lamp. For a brief moment, everything was darkness and whispering air. Then, silence. When Amara blinked her eyes open again, the woman was gone. The doorway stood empty. The moonlight spilled softly across the floor, calm and pale. Amara's hands were empty. The purse had vanished. She gasped, looking around the room, the walls, the bed, the floor. But there was nothing. Only stillness, her mother whispered from the mat. Amara. Who was it? Amara couldn't answer. Her body was trembling, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. She turned slowly toward the small wooden table near the wall, and there she saw it. The folded note, the same one that had been inside the purse, now lay neatly on the table. She hadn't placed it there. Her breath caught as she stepped closer. The paper was yellowed and soft, but the handwriting was clear and careful. It read, "To whoever finds this, your honesty will save you." As she read the words aloud, a warm breeze drifted through the open door. The flame of the lamp flickered back to life, glowing steady and bright. The air felt lighter, softer, almost peaceful. Amara sank to her knees, her eyes wide and glistening. She looked toward the doorway once more, but the night was still. Only the gentle sound of wind rustling through the grass remained. Lady crawled close and whispered, "Was it a spirit?" Amara placed a trembling hand on her sister's head. "I don't know," she murmured, "but I think." She came for what was hers. She turned back toward the note, the words shining softly in the lamplight. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Your honesty will save you." A tear rolled down her cheek. Outside, the wind moved gently through the village. No longer cold, no longer sharp, but calm and quiet, like a soul finally at rest. The first light of dawn crept softly into the small house, brushing against the cracked walls and the worn wooden floor. The sounds of the waking village began to stir outside. Distant voices, a rooster's crow, the clinking of pots. But inside, the air was strangely still. Peaceful, Amara sat near the table, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. She hadn't slept. The night's memory replayed over and over in her mind. The knocking, the woman's calm voice, the glow of her white wrapper, and the way the purse vanished into thin air. The folded note still lay on the table where she'd found it. She hadn't touched it since. Every time her eyes fell on those words, "Your honesty will save you." A strange warmth filled her chest, a feeling she couldn't explain. Her mother stirred from the mat and whispered weakly, "Amara, is it morning?" Amara turned, her face softening. "Yes, Mama, the sun is rising." Her mother coughed lightly and sat up with effort. "That sound last night, was it a dream?" Amara hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I think it was more than a dream." Lottie yawned beside her, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "I was so scared," she said quietly. "I thought she was a ghost." Amara reached out and brushed her sister's hair back. "She wasn't here to hurt us," she said softly. "She just wanted what was hers." The words lingered in the air, heavy and thoughtful. After a while, Amara stood and stepped outside. The morning breeze met her face, cool and gentle. The market square could be seen in the distance, already alive with people setting up their stalls, laughter echoing faintly through the air. But something felt different. She walked toward the market slowly, her feet sinking lightly into the red dust of the road. Every step felt uncertain, as if she were walking between two worlds, one she understood and one she didn't. When she reached her stall, the old fruit seller, Mama Ngozi, waved at her cheerfully. "Ah, Amara, you came early today." Amara smiled faintly, though her heart was still heavy. "Yes, Mama, I couldn't sleep." Mama Ngozi chuckled. "Sleep will find you after market hours. Come, help me lift this basket." Amara bent to help her, but something caught her eye. Just beyond the well, a small group of villagers had gathered, whispering among themselves. At the center of the circle lay something wrapped in white cloth. Her stomach turned. She recognized that cloth, the same type of glowing white wrapper the woman had worn the night before. She walked closer, her pulse quickening. "What's happening?" she asked one of the onlookers. An elderly man turned to her, his expression grave. "They found a woman's body by the road, just outside the market," he said softly. "It looks like she passed away last night." Amara froze. Her mouth went dry. "A woman?" he nodded. "Yes, no one knows where she came from, but they say she carried a leather purse in her hand." Amara's heart stopped. Her knees weakened, and for a moment the ground seemed to sway beneath her. She clutched her chest, her mind flashing back to the night, the pale figure in the doorway, her calm voice, the way the purse had vanished into air. She whispered under her breath, "It can't be." Mama Ngozi, standing beside her now, frowned with concern. "Amara, what is it?" Amara shook her head slowly, tears welling in her eyes. I met her last night." The old woman blinked in confusion. "Met her? How?" Amara didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the white cloth, the way the morning sun touched it, making it shimmer faintly. The villagers began to murmur prayers, some bowing their heads, others crossing themselves. Someone mentioned that the body had been found just before dawn, as if she had been walking home when her heart gave out. Amara took a deep breath, her voice barely a whisper. She came for her purse, and for peace. The villagers looked at her strangely, unsure what she meant, but she didn't explain. She couldn't. Some truths weren't meant for everyone to understand. Instead, she turned away, walking back toward her stall. The air felt lighter now, almost holy. When she reached her small table, something made her stop. There, lying neatly beside her basket, was a folded note. She picked it up with trembling hands. The handwriting was the same, delicate and curved. It read, "Thank you, Amara. Your honesty has freed me, and will bless you." For a long time, Amara just stared at the note. The letters seemed to shimmer faintly in the morning light. Mama Ngozi called out, "Child, are you all right?" Amara turned to her with tears in her eyes, but this time they were not of fear. They were of peace. "I'm fine, Mama," she said softly. For the first time, "I'm fine." She folded the note gently and placed it in her basket. The morning sun broke fully through the clouds, bathing the market in warm gold. As the day went on, Amara's stall was busier than ever. People came from every corner to buy her vegetables. Some said her tomatoes looked brighter than anyone else's, her peppers fresher, her smile warmer. By evening, every single item was sold. When she counted her earnings, her hands shook. The coins were more than she'd ever made in a single day, enough to buy medicine, pay the rent, and even send Lady back to school. She looked toward the horizon, where the sun was setting in a blaze of orange and red. Her lips trembled into a soft smile. "Your honesty will save you," she whispered. And it did. The wind passed gently through the market, carrying with it the faint scent of white jasmine, the same scent the woman had left behind. Amara closed her eyes, lifted her face toward the sky, and let the tears fall freely. That night, when she finally slept, her dreams were calm and bright, filled not with fear, but with peace, gratitude, and the quiet promise of a new beginning. Years passed, and the market changed. New stalls, new faces, new laughter. But one thing never changed. Amara's story. She was no longer the weary woman who once prayed for a miracle beneath the morning sun. Her hands were stronger now, her smile brighter, her heart calmer. The small vegetable stall had grown into a thriving business, yet she never lost her humility. On the wall of her stall hung a simple wooden frame, holding a single note, written in faded ink. "Your honesty will save you." People often asked about it, and each time Amara would pause from her work, wipe her hands on her apron, and tell them the story. Softly, reverently, She spoke of a cold night, a lost purse, and a woman in white who came to reclaim what was hers. She never embellished it. She didn't have to. The truth itself carried more power than any tale. The younger sellers would listen wide-eyed, some frightened, others moved to silence. And when she finished, Amara would always say, "In this life, what you choose when no one is watching defines who you truly are." The market folk came to see her as a symbol, a reminder that honesty still had a place in a world that often forgot it. Her reputation spread beyond the village. Traders from neighboring towns came to do business with her, drawn not just by her goods, but by her grace. At home, her mother's laughter filled the house again, soft and tender, while Lady, now grown, helped her with the accounts. The once crumbling house stood repaired, bright with color and life. Sometimes, when Amara walked home at dusk, she would glance toward the old road, the one where the woman had vanished. The same wind still whispered there, but it was no longer cold. It felt warm, almost familiar, wrapping around her like a gentle embrace. She would smile and whisper, "Thank you." Then she'd continue her walk, the sun dipping low behind her, her basket empty, but her heart full. Because Amara had learned the truth of miracles. They did not always come as wealth or luck. Sometimes they came as tests, wrapped in temptation, waiting to see what the soul would choose. And on that quiet road, under the same fading lanterns, Amara's prayer still lingered in the air. No longer a cry for help, but a whisper of gratitude. "Thank you for changing my life, through honesty, through faith, through grace." A soft breeze swept through the market once more, gentle, peaceful, as if the spirit of Mamanjeri still passed by. Smiling, the wind stayed for a moment, then moved on.